Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on the Are You Serious Sports Network on Facebook Live, on Twitter, and on Twitch TV. I'm your host, Jonah Malkin, with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you so much for joining me, making Morning Joe and Are You Serious Sports Network a part of your weekday plans. So much to get into today. Going to talk about Dodgers moving one win closer to a World Series title. Some news in the NFL, Cardinals and the Seahawks, epic showdown. This was a fantastic match. Can't wait to delve into that. Steelers and Titans, the clash of the Titans, right? Impressive win by the Steelers. Then the Cowboys and the Falcons. Just a disaster of a season for them. Some news with Pat Riley. And we're even going to touch on OBJ. The news just came out that he tore his ACL. We're going to talk about that and a great Maliks Moments for you. So you're going to want to stick around. Make sure to tune in. Again, hashtag Morning Joe, hashtag JMalk, right here on the Are You Serious Sports Network. So Dodgers move one win closer to their first World Series title since 1988. I first have to say this. Baseball is such a fickle sport. And it's the ultimate quit it and forget it game. Command, Alt, Delete. The first question that I need to ask is I need to talk to the GM of the Dodgers, Andrew Friedman, and ask him where he bought his mattress from. I don't know how the hell in the world these baseball players can sleep at night. I truly don't. Where do they buy their mattresses from? Where do they get their beds from? Is this sit and sleep? Is this the Mattress King? Because somehow these baseball players probably can have they're the heaviest sleepers I've ever seen. One night they go 0 for 4. If you're a batter, you go 0 for 4, 4 strikeouts. Then the next game you come out and you're 3 for 4 with a home run in the World Series. So the first question I need to ask is where are they buying their mattresses from? Because clearly these guys are getting good night's sleeps. They're not woken up in fright. I need to figure out where they buy their mattresses from so that I can cop me one of those. Because I don't know how the Dodgers were able to shake off Saturday night's debacle at the end of the game to come back and basically put themselves in a similar situation and hold on to the victory. Again, I know baseball, you play so many games on back-to-back days, but this was remarkable to me. I need to figure out where to get me one of those mattresses because the bottom line is this. At the end of the day, Dodgers probably should have closed it out last night to win their first World Series. They lost Game 4. And now they won Game 5 last night. They won 4-2 to win that series. But again, they should have won both of those games, but whatever. They didn't. But the thing is this. I hate deja vu. I really do. And last night was looking a heck of a lot like deja vu to me, based on how that first game on Saturday night transpired. When you're nervously excited for something, when you have a nervous excitement, maybe you're preparing to go on a date, you're preparing to give a speech, you're preparing to perform a musical, to sing an opera, you have butterflies in your stomach. It's a kind of typical positive connotation to it. Okay, I didn't have butterflies in my stomach. I had worms. It felt like I had worms in my stomach watching the bottom of the ninth last night. It felt like that I had worms hemorrhaging big chunks of my insides. This was like a flash of all the most horrific sports memories that I've compiled, just flashing before my very eyes last night. And Blake Trinan comes in, and the bottom line is this. Manny Margot hits that leadoff single in the bottom of the ninth, and I'm thinking, oh, geez, here we go again. Is this really going to happen again? Are we really going to blow this again? And again, all the shortfalls flashed right before me. 2013, 2014, the collapses against the Cardinals, 2015 against the Mets, 2016 against the Cubs, 2017 in the World Series against the Astros, 2018 in the World Series against the Red Sox, 2019 against the Nationals. And I'm thinking, is this really going to happen one more time? And don't get me wrong, the Rays are a good team. Listen, this is a really good team. They deserve to be here, and they have rallied. They nearly staved off an epic 3-0 collapse to the Astros, but credit to them. They showed tremendous toughness and resolve. But the reality is the fact that the Dodgers were able to come back after that and bounce back after that loss is remarkable. Shows tremendous toughness, tremendous resiliency, tremendous resolve, as we just said. And again, when Blake Trinan comes in, initially I'm thinking, is Dave Roberts really about to give this baseball to Kenley Jansen again? And don't get me wrong, I love Kenley Jansen. He's been with the Dodgers for 11 seasons. In 11 seasons, he's got a career 2.4 ERA. In 8 postseasons, he's got a career 1.9 ERA with the Dodgers. This guy has been fantastic. He was one of the best closers at one stretch of time. But the harsh reality, if you're Kenley Jansen and you're a Dodgers fan, is when you watch this guy in the postseason, in the World Series, if you look at his last 3 World Series, which the last 3 World Series that the Dodgers have been in, the reality is this: 2017 against the Astros, 2018 against the Red Sox, plays in 2 games, 1 blown save. And then this year, the 2 games he's played, he had a 9 ERA in one of the games he played. And then 2 nights ago, he had a 13.5 ERA. That's an 11.25 ERA in 2 games played, in 2 innings played this season in the World Series. And this is a guy that I love. I love Kenley Jansen. But the fact that we can't rely on him anymore, and we have to give the game ball to Blake Trinan, and to his credit, he stepped up after that leadoff single in the bottom of the 9th. He closed the deal, took care of business, and they secured the win, and he secured the save and collected the save. But everything just seemed to be falling apart, and especially when that closer is no longer there, and there's still question marks lingering and looming for the rest of this series. And credit to Kershaw now. He's 2-0 in the World Series this year, averaging a 2.3 ERA. He moved into first place for the most strikeouts in postseason history, just past Justin Verlander with 206, Verlander with 205. And the interesting thing about the Dodgers is now they've hit multiple home runs in 8 consecutive postseason games. They've every single position. They have 8 different positions in the lineup to have hit a home run for the Dodgers this postseason. First team in World Series history to get a home run from 8 different spots in the batting order. They've had 9 different guys hit a home run in this postseason. And the problem is, on the flip side for the Rays, this postseason, they're 19 of 99 with runners in scoring position. They have to hit that home run ball. And so they got to figure out how to come back, because the bottom line is the Dodgers can beat you in a myriad of ways. And a Rosarena in the bottom of the 9th, a pop-up, Brandon Lau pop-up on the first strike, on the first pitch that they saw. If they don't make clean contact with it, they're not going to win this baseball game. And all I could think about was I was envisioning everything that was taking place Saturday night. I'm thinking, Kenley's got it. Kenley's got it. Comes up to the mound. And we're 1 strike away 2 times from taking a 3-1 lead against a Rosarena. Kenley Jansen in a great position, ahead in the count 1-2. Rosarena works the count full. Then he draws a walk. Now you got 2 guys on after Kiermaier already hit a base hit. And now I'm thinking, okay, Here's Brett Phillips. Who the hell is Brett Phillips? He pinch hits. This guy has a heartbeat of 140 beats per minute. Nearly had to be taken to the hospital because he was so amped after that base hit, and he singles into right center. And then they win the game. The air from Chris Taylor in center field, the throw to home, Will Smith can't catch it, so it's a catching error. And Arozarena, who was rounding third, just tumbled to the ground, literally was asking the Dodgers, please tag me out or keep this a one at a one run, at a single run. Please. Dodgers are like, nah, just continue tumbling along all the way. It's not a big deal. Just tumble along to the home plate. We'll let you score. We'll let you score. We don't really want to tag the base. We don't want to tag you out anyway. He said, okay, thank you. We'll tie this series at 2-2. And again, credit to the Dodgers for coming back. Credit to the Dodgers for coming back and making this not only a fascinating series, but again, so many emotions just fluctuate in a baseball game. And I truly need to find out where these guys get their mattresses from, because I don't know how they have the shortest memories of athletes I've ever seen. It's remarkable. The shortest athletes that I've ever seen. And it sucks that we couldn't turn to Kenley Jansen to close out the game. But the bottom line is, at this point in the season, you have to ride the guys that you know can close the deal, that can get the job done. Blake Treinen did that. And I'll be curious to see tomorrow night for Game 6, if the game is tight again, who Dave Roberts turns to. But at the end of the day, a win is a win. And LeBron James tweeted after the game, job not finished. Finish your breakfast. And that's true. That sentiment has to be shared throughout the entire locker room. It has to be. This team has never had a more opportune time, a more opportune moment than right now. So you lost Game 4. Quit it and forget it. Command, Alt, Delete. You have to change it up. And they were able to do that. They stuck with the same game plan. And they got off to a good start in Game 4 as well, just like they did in Game 5, just like they did in Game 3. The last 3 straight games. I mean, the Dodgers are a better team. But in baseball, oftentimes, it's not just who's the better team, but who's playing better at the right time. Morning, Joe. Right here on the Are You Serious Sports Network, on Facebook Live, on Twitch TV, and on Twitter. Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you so much for joining me at Morning Joe and all of us here at the Are You Serious Sports Network, making us a part of your Monday morning plans. Now, shifting to the NFL. Boy, did we have some good matchups yesterday, didn't we? Epic clashes, epic matchups. Got to start with the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Listen, this was one of those games where it felt like the present meets the future. All the comparisons throughout the entire offseason was Kyler Murray, and at least coming out of Oklahoma, was Kyler Murray is going to be the next Russell Wilson. We started to see some flashes of this last year, but this was the first time when we really got a good opportunity to see just how great Kyler Murray really is. And the Cardinals really are. The Cardinals are for real this year. I mean, Murray was fantastic. 34 of 48. 427 total yards. 360 through the air, 60 with his legs, accounted for 4 touchdowns, only threw 1 pick. Now, the numbers for Russell were were pretty good. 388 yards through the air, 472 total yards, and 3 touchdowns. He did throw 3 interceptions that I'm going to touch on later. But this might have been the wildest game that we've seen this year. We always have those kind of wild games, right? A couple years ago, it was the Chiefs and the Rams in that 54-51 shootout at the Coliseum. This was an epic overtime win for the Cardinals, 37-34. Really launched them into that stratosphere of legitimate teams in the NFL. We always kind of see that about midway through the season. Now, I thought this was going to be one of the plays of the game. When Russell Wilson threw that pick at the Arizona 3 and Budda Baker intercepted and nearly took it to the house, and then you see DK Metcalf chase him down like a mama bear is chasing after someone who just went after her baby cub. When he made that play, when he rushed back and tackled Budda Baker after an 80 yards, he easily could have taken that one to the house. When DK Metcalf chased him down and wrapped him up, I thought that's the play of the game. And for a moment it was. Those are the kind of plays that get coaches enamored. That's what they preach. Because ultimately the defense for Seattle forced a 4-and-out on a 4th and goal for Arizona. They couldn't even punch it in. They couldn't even score 3 points. And the Seahawks could have easily caved and just let Bud Dupree. Why do I keep saying Bud Dupree? I don't know why I keep saying Bud Dupree. He's with the Steelers. I'm going to talk about him in the next segment. Budda Baker, the safety. He could have easily just let Baker stroll into the end zone. And he didn't give up on the play. And I thought, for however much my emotions were kind of oscillating in this moment, in this play, that this was going to be the play of the game for the Seahawks if they were to win this ball game. Because those are the winning plays. These are the winning plays that you have to make. And credit to the Cardinals for still being able to stick together and win this game, because there's so many tremendous throws, so many tremendous plays that took place. So many fantastic plays. You have the 35-yard touchdown from Murray to DeAndre Hopkins in the first quarter, the 57-yard touchdown bomb at the end of the first half from Russell Wilson to Tyler Lockett. And then conversely, both Wilson and Murray threw back-to-back awful interceptions at the top of the fourth quarter. Then you have the Seahawks go up by 10 with 6 minutes left. Wilson finds Lockett on a 4th and 2 at the Arizona 3. Hits him with a loft in the back of the end zone, just able to get his toes in bounds. That was a fantastic play. And it looked like the Seahawks were going to win. And the Seahawks defense had forced a field goal for Seattle, for Arizona. It was about to be a 52-yard field goal to Gonzalez. And then you have defensive unsportsmanlike conduct, 15 yards plus a first down. And it ultimately results in the Cardinals punching it in, scoring a touchdown, cutting the lead to 3. Seattle had the ball with 2.5 minutes left, with Russell Wilson up by 3. They needed to convert 2 first downs. They got 1, couldn't get the second one. That left a minute left for Kyler Murray, and he orchestrated a great late game drive to set Gonzalez up for a field goal. He knocks it through in overtime. Then, to make matters even wilder, once you get to overtime, Cardinals have a chance to win it. 44-yard field goal. He misses it. Misses the field goal. Seattle comes back. Wilson hits DK Metcalf for a 48-yard catch and run for a touchdown. That's called off for offensive holding. That wipes off the touchdown. Now the ball goes back to the Cardinals, and they end up winning on a game-winning field goal. But the loss just further elucidates and exposes the biggest flaws for Seattle. which is their defense. They've got an awful defense. They're the worst team in the NFL in total yards allowed. They're the worst defense in total passing yards. They're decent against the rush. They're decent against the run. But the problem is you're playing a team in the Arizona Cardinals that are top 2 in the league in total yards per game, top 2 in rushing, and they're a very solid passing team. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks made the Cardinals last night look like the 2013 Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas, or the 2007 New England Patriots when the Patriots acquired Randy Moss, who ended up having perhaps the greatest statistical year for an NFL wide receiver. 98 receptions, 1,500 yards, 15 yards per catch, 23 touchdowns. Akin to Randy Moss, you have DeAndre Hopkins with Kyler Murray, who's on his way towards a similar type of season. Probably not in the touchdowns department, but he's got 58 catches for 704 yards, 2 touchdowns, 13 yards per catch, first in the NFL in receptions, first in the NFL in receiving yards. So the problem is that Russell Wilson's got to be perfect every single night for this team to have a chance. It's like if you're talking to a chef, the head chef at a restaurant. The head chef, he's got sous chefs, he's got assistant chefs, he's got an expediter who makes sure that every dish is pristine, looks like perfection before it's served out, before the servers take it out and deliver it to the customers. Not to mention you have the servers, right? It's all one team working under the head chef. The problem is in Seattle, Russell Wilson's the head chef, he's the sous chef, he's the expediter, he's the server. And the problem was the service last night wasn't very good. You're going to look at the stats and say Russell Wilson was fantastic. And listen, given his enormous responsibilities, he still had a very productive game, but he was 33 for 50, which is not as accurate as he normally is. He did throw for 388 yards and 3 touchdowns, but the problem is he threw 3 interceptions, and they were badly timed interceptions too. I already mentioned one. You're at the Arizona 3-yard line. You throw near pick 6. You're lucky that your Megatron, that your monster of a wide receiver who wasn't born on this planet, I think he was born on Krypton, in DK Metcalf, is able to sprint a 40-yard dash, but this time it's extended to an 80-yard dash in what felt like 6 seconds, carrying 240 pounds of straight muscle, was able to catch the safety and drag him down. That was a terribly timed pick. The pick at the top of the fourth quarter, at the beginning of the fourth quarter, was awful. If you ask Russell Wilson, he wouldn't say he played a great game. And the truth of the matter is he didn't. But those are the standards that we expect from a guy like Russell Wilson. Those are the standards. And if anything, what this game solidified is that the NFC West is the best division in football. There are no losing teams in the NFC West. Seattle still leads at 5-1. Arizona right behind them at 5-2. The Rams are 4-2. They're playing the Chicago Bears, who are in the top of the NFC North tonight on Monday Night Football. And then now the 49ers are starting to get healthier. They're 4-3. They're right in the thick of it. The 49ers are the worst statistical team at 4-3 in the NFC West. So this was a major coming out party for the Arizona Cardinals. This was a special win. Kyler Murray is legit. This team is legit. They get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Not to mention, imagine if Chandler Jones was still on this team. He's not even playing. So credit to the Cardinals for pulling off this victory. And again, it felt like I was watching a Back to the Future movie where you're seeing what your life is going to look like in the next 20 years when you're looking at Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. Just epic game. Again, probably the wildest and the best game from start to finish that we've seen in the NFL so far this year. Morning Joe right here on the Are You Serious Sports Network, on Facebook Live, on Twitch TV, and on Twitter. Thank you so much for joining me. Still a lot to get into today. More NFL coming up. A great Maliks Moments. Can't wait to get into that one for you. So there was a Clash of the Titans game last night or yesterday during the day. I was surprised that it was actually the first game of the NFL slate. First game of the NFL slate. Noah Silver, let's go Cards. Shout out to you. Appreciate you watching the show. Give a shout out to your Arizona Cardinals. This is a legitimate team, as I talked about. The other legitimate team that I just mentioned right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Boy, listen, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers is like walking into a classroom in college where you're hungover the next day, and the last thing you want to do is show up to an early morning class. This is not a team that you want to face when you're sober. This is not a team that you want to face at any time of the day. And the bottom line is the Titans weren't ready for this game. The Steelers punched them in the mouth, led by as many as 27-7 early in this game. Both of these teams entered undefeated, and the Steelers now 6-0, handing the Titans their first loss of the year. I mean, this game, to me, was never really in question. It really was never in question. And what's more impressive is the fact that Ben Roethlisberger wasn't even that consistent. He threw the ball 49 times. 49 times. He did complete 32 of the passes, but he threw it 49 times. And he only threw for like 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions for Big Ben. So the fact that you have your quarterback who, yes, on the season is completing 68% of his passes, but he was not even that efficient yesterday. And yet this team still looked dominant from start to finish. I mean, outside of the very last drive for the Titans, you're watching that game, it never seemed like the Steelers were going to lose this football game. It really never did. They dominated literally every single facet of this game. They had more first downs, 23-15, better third down efficiency, 13 of 18 versus 5 of 13 for the Titans. More total plays, more total yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards, more trips to the red zone, better time of possession. And yet, listen, the Titans still had a chance at the end. Ben Roethlisberger threw a pick in the end zone, and Gostkowski missed a late game tying field goal, which is uncharacteristic of Stephen Gostkowski. But you look at this Steelers team, they're the number 1 defense in the league, and they've been rolling this entire season. They've suffocated teams this entire season, and they're completing on the season 51% of their third down conversions. They haven't trailed a game. The Pittsburgh Steelers have not trailed in a game since the third quarter in week 3 versus the Texans, versus the Houston Texans. I mean, they've been averaging, first of all, on the season, their average margin of victory is 11 points a game. If you take a look at the Steelers' last 3 games against teams that most people would consider more reputable types of teams, because that was one of the criticisms about the Steelers early in the season was, are they really playing elite competition? That was the question. And in fairness, I didn't think they were either. It wasn't until last week that I had them in my top 5, that I had them number 4. Now, the way they're playing, they're probably number 2. Some people might have them as the best team. I'm not going to go that far, and I'm not going to reveal my top 10 teams in the NFL right now. But you look at this team over the last 3 games, they've averaged their average margin of victory has been 14.3 points a game. They're converting on 62% of their third down attempts this year. And they beat the Titans. They destroyed the Browns. They beat the Eagles. Their defense is stacked. Again, the number one defense in total yards allowed, number two against the rush, number one in sacks with 26 sacks on the season. Their linebacking core might be the best linebacking core in football. TJ Watt, 5.5 sacks. Bud Dupree, 5 sacks. Now you have Vince Williams coming in and contributing 3 sacks on the season. Their secondary is elite with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Again, now you have a guy in Steven Nelson, who's the cornerback, that's registered 2 interceptions on the season already. Can't even forget about Devin Bush as a linebacker. He doesn't even get all the snaps. That's how stacked they are. That's how deep they are. So this team is legit. This team is legit. The Steelers right now, I had them in my top 4 in my last power rankings for the top 10 teams, but now it looks like I will probably have to move them into my top 5 because this is just another example of this team that is well coached. Big Ben is healthy, and Juju Smith-Schuster isn't even leading the team in receptions. Claypool, their wide receiver, is leading the team in receptions and receiving yards. Deontay Johnson had 2 touchdowns yesterday. He was fantastic. But this team has just looked so dominant and so complete. And you look at the remainder of their schedule, and it's a very favorable schedule. They play the Baltimore Ravens 2 more times. Even if you think that worst case scenario, they lose both of those games. Let's say you think they lose both of those games. The only other games that maybe they could lose at the Buffalo Bills and maybe at the Browns, although I doubt it, that's only 4 games. So worst case scenario, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're looking at a 12-2 team. A year removed from Mike Tomlin missing the postseason for the first time ever as a head coach with the Steelers, when he had a third string Duck Hemsworth as your quarterback, your third string quarterback, and you still go 8-8. Last year, that was the first time ever that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers missed the postseason. And now you get Big Ben healthy. He's playing more under control. The one question mark I do have, when I watch Big Ben, and again, this isn't a revelation. I didn't just have an epiphany about this, but he is so slow. If he does not have good protection, does not get rid of the football in under 3 seconds, it's a disaster waiting to happen, because I just watch him lumber around. It's like watching a sloth on a tree. He just cannot move quickly, but if you give him time to throw, he's got a rocket of an arm. He can throw it. He can throw it 55, 60 yards if you give him time. The Steelers team is legit. So comment, review, subscribe, like, hashtag Morning Joe, hashtag MJ, hashtag JMalk. Right here. Morning Joe on the Are You Serious Sports Network, on Facebook Live, on Twitch TV, and on Twitter. Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. From the great teams to the god-awful teams, let's begin with the Cowboys, shall we? I don't love talking about the Cowboys. I really don't. But when you lose to a team without a mascot, not to mention without a mascot and question marks at the quarterback, no team sponsor, when you lose 25-3 in a game like that, I was just talking about how baseball players have such short memories, right? And I was talking about, hey, where can I cop me one of those mattresses, one of those mattress pads? The Cowboys' entire team needs a new set of beds. They need new bed sheets. They got bed bugs all over the place. This is like waking up from an incessant nightmare every single week. This was just a disgusting loss. And again, it's not the fact that they lost the game. Teams lose games all the time. It's the manners in which you lose. Again, I've talked about optics being so important, not only in my evaluation process and my assessment of different teams when I'm ranking them, but optics are important in sending messages to other teams as well. And this Cowboys team has just given up on the season. The problem is they're in such a weak division, they couldn't even have given up on the season if they tried to, because they're still in contention to win the division at 2-5. Now, I know to make matters worse, Andy Dalton left the game with a concussion on the hit from John Bostic in the middle of the third quarter. But the reality is, and I hope that Andy Dalton is okay, and that's unfortunate to see. But the reality is Andy Dalton wasn't even that good when he was in there. He wasn't even that good when he was in there. He was 9 for 19, 75 yards, and an interception. They had to throw in Ben DiNucci, their third-string quarterback, who during the first 5 broadcasts, all the broadcasters don't want to say we're mocking or humiliating, because they weren't. I don't want to denigrate them. They were kind of laughing at, the depth chart at quarterback is really really slim now that Dak Prescott is out. Wonder if the Cowboys, now if Andy Dalton goes down, who do they go to? I guess it's a kid named Ben DiNucci, this Italian kid who's a third-string quarterback. He came in, completed a couple passes, good for him, made a couple decent throws. They lost 25-3. Zeke Elliott, only 12 carries, 45 yards. And at this point, the team has just completely given up, not only on the coaching staff, not only on their teammates, not only on the organization, they've given up on themselves. This team is just imploding. And don't get me wrong, I know that Washington's defense is elite, because they actually are. Chase Young, now Landon Collins, unfortunately, his safety, he ruptured his Achilles, wishing him a speedy recovery. Never want to see that. So Washington is the best team against the pass in the NFL. But again, you have to look at who they're playing. And so I don't want to discount Washington, because they are a good team on the defensive side of the ball. But 0 catches for CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup? 0 catches for CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup? 8 targets for both and 0 catches for your number 2 and your number 3 wide receiver? I know that Washington's pass defense is good, but they're not that good where they can just totally shut off your second and third best wide receiver. Some would argue Michael Gallup has played like the best wide receiver for the Cowboys this year. 0 catches for those guys? And again, I've said this before, but what sucks for the Cowboys is they have to keep waking up from this incessant nightmare, because they couldn't tank on the season even if they wanted to. The Eagles are in first at 2-4-1. Washington is second at 2-5. Cowboys are in third at 2-5. Giants are 1-6. The Eagles are the best team in the division at 2-4-1. Cowboys couldn't even tank if they want to. They're still primed to win the division. They're still primed to win the division. If this was any other team in any other division, I would say just give up. But since they're in the NFC East, they can't. They honestly can't. They're still in the thick of it. They're still in the thick of it. The other team that's been just an ultimate disaster this year is the Atlanta Falcons. Head coach gone, GM gone, this season gone. The season was already gone before, but this was just so apropos of the Falcons season. Losing to the 3-3 Detroit Lions, 23-22. talk about feeling like you're waking up from a spiraling, continuing nightmare. The Falcons, they've had so many unfortunate breaks this year. This is actually a good roster. It's a good roster, a team that should probably be at least 4-3, but they're 1-6. How do you not understand time and possession? Time and the score. You're down by 2, 14-16. You're inside the red zone. I believe you're inside the 10-yard line of Detroit. Detroit's got no more timeouts. And you're the Falcons. You have possession. Yes, you're down by 2. There's a minute and 13 left in this game. You know that the Lions can't do anything. They got no timeouts. You hand the ball off to Todd Gurley, which I'm not going to say that's a mistake, but if you're Todd Gurley, you have to know your position. You have to know your position. You probably should have just taken a knee. Instead, you hand the ball off to Todd Gurley. He's in the middle of his carry, forgets the time and score. Lions pretend to give a fake effort to try and tackle him, and they help escort him right into the end zone. And by the time Gurley finally realizes, wait a second, I should probably drop down before the end zone, he's at the 1-yard line, tries to pull himself back and keep himself from falling into the end zone, and he falls right in across the goal line. His hand touches the goal line. And now your worst case scenario came to fruition. You gave the Lions, you gave Matt Stafford one more chance with 1 minute remaining to beat you in a game-winning touchdown. And they did. And they did. The other thing is this. Arthur Blank, stop going down onto the field prematurely, dude. You're jinxing your team. Arthur Blank keeps coming down onto the field prematurely when he thinks his team's won the game, and every single time the team ends up losing. And now your face is a meme that's going viral on the internet week in and week out. I'm not saying this is Arthur Blank's fault for the turmoil that's taking place right now and the turbulence that's transpiring in Atlanta, because he's not on the field. He's not part of the coaching staff. But you own that dome. You own that team. Just stay up in your booth. Wait to embrace your players and congratulate them on the win after. But you keep going down onto the field prematurely, and your team keeps losing. Jamie Fortenberry, Falcons sucked off. Yeah, they're awful. But here's the difference. The personnel of the Falcons are not awful. They've got perhaps the best wide receiving duo in the league, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. By all accounts, they likely have a top 10 running back in the league in Todd Gurley. Now, I'm not saying Matt Ryan is playing like his MVP self. I'm not going to say that. But he's still a quality quarterback. Say what you want about him this season, but he's still a quality quarterback, to say the least. They had no more timeouts. Fourth quarter, 1 minute and 15 seconds left. Just take a knee and then bring in your excellent kicker, Younghoe Koo, into the game. Hope I pronounced your name right. And hit a chip shot field goal to win. The field goal that the Falcons would have kicked to win the game would have been from a shorter distance than you would an extra point. You have to understand time and score, and this was just an awful example. And now they're 1-6. This team is 1-6. They should be at least 4-3, I would imagine. Now, transitioning to another unfortunate injury and another unfortunate team who, yes, they have a good record, but suffered a major blow. The Browns, yes, they improved to 5-3, but it was just announced this morning that Odell Beckham Jr. has torn his ACL. This is just an extremely sad story to hear. Not to mention another star player going down in the NFL. I understand that injuries are part of the game, but specifically for Odell Beckham Jr., that this is just a real travesty, because when this guy's healthy, he might be the most talented wide receiver ever, maybe that we've ever seen. His first 3 years in the league with the Giants, he caught for over 1,300 yards, over 1,400 yards in year 2. And since his third year in the league, his fourth season with the Giants, he had that high ankle sprain that forced him to sit out for long stretches of time. Year 5, he once again had Eli Manning, who was throwing him the football. Eli Manning was like Benjamin Button out there, still trying to play football. And then he gets traded to the Browns. His receptions go down. His receiving yards go down. His targets go down. Baker Mayfield, in Odell Beckham Jr.'s first year, had his lowest completion percentage, 59%. Was not a good quarterback last year. It trickled over into the offseason. They tried to develop rapport. And coming into this season, it was better. But again, Odell Beckham Jr.'s receptions, targets, catches, touchdowns were all down. Now, it was understandable given all the weapons, given the bevy of weapons that they do have and the plethora of receivers that they have at their disposal. But this was just an unfortunate manifestation of the disunity, the discombobulation, the lack of cohesiveness displayed by the Browns, not only throughout their tenure, but specifically since Odell Beckham joined the team and linked up Baker Mayfield. They have never been in sync. And it's awful that you have to see a guy who's so talented drop down, especially in a year in which the Browns were finally a little bit more relevant, were finally competitive, were finally playing well. They're 5-2. Now they're third in the AFC North, but the AFC North is still probably the second best division in football, with the Steelers at 6-0, the Ravens at 5-1, Browns right behind them at 5-2. That this was a team that was destined perhaps to make the postseason in God knows how long. And it would have been great to experience that moment with Odell Beckham Jr. And now we are deprived of that. And we have to see in an immensely talented individual recover on the sidelines. And I'm sad for him because he didn't even want to really be there in the first place. He had to just mull through this season. He had to play for something bigger than himself this season. Not that that's always bad, but this was such a talented guy. I loved seeing him play, and I wanted him to get that chance to be in the postseason and redeem that awful outing with the Giants against Green Bay when he took a bunch of his teammates to Miami to party the weekend before. And I wanted to see him get that redemption moment, and now he's injured for the rest of the season. So hopefully wishing him a speedy recovery as well. And now I don't know what's going to happen with him. I don't know if he's going to stay on the team. I don't know if he's going to flee. I don't know if he can flee. Maybe his agent can demand a trade. Whatever it is, I hope that he can get better quickly. Morning, Joe. Right here on the Are You Serious Sports Network, on Facebook Live, on Twitch TV, and on Twitter. Mondays and Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on the Are You Serious Sports Network. Final two topics of the day. Great Maliks moment coming up in about 5 minutes. But first, Pat Riley, the executive with the Miami Heat, made some controversial statements. Then he ended up walking it back. I'll talk about that. About the Lakers. Basically, was wanting to add an asterisk to the Lakers championship. He came out saying the other day that if Bam and Goran were healthy, this would obviously be a different series. Maybe the series goes 7. In fact, the specific quote has to do with initially the Lakers should add an asterisk to their championship because of the Heat injuries. He said, quote, "I would like to see what it would be like with everybody whole. We'll get our chance again. The Lakers have the greatest player in the game today in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They beat us fair and square. They were the best team, but there's always going to be an asterisk, that caveat. If we had Bam and Goran was our leading scorer in the playoffs at 100%. It could have gone to 7 games or whatever." Why do you have to have sour grapes right now, Pat? And I know you walked back your comments. I will acknowledge you walking back your comments, but you knew exactly what you said coming into it. And the bottom line is this. Yes, that's true that you had to suffer some injuries. The bottom line is your road to the path was a bit auspicious. Pacers were without Domantas Sabonis. Victor Oladipo wasn't fully healthy. Giannis and the Bucks. Now, granted, I thought you guys were just better. The Miami Heat were better than the Bucks, and they were still up 3-0 before Antetokounmpo twisted his ankle, but he did turn his ankle. That was favorable. That was a bit fortuitous. Then in the conference finals, you get Boston. Gordon Hayward was still kind of working his way back from an injury. Not to mention the Lakers never gave any excuses for playing the entire bubble and the entire postseason without Avery Bradley, their best perimeter defender. They didn't have him. He would have guarded Dragic. He would have locked him up, or at least done a number on him. But you don't hear the Lakers complaining about not having Avery Bradley for their entire postseason run. Now, he did end up walking. He later in the day walked back those comments saying the asterisk is next to the Heat's name, not the Lakers. Their title is legitimate. Our loss has an asterisk next to it. The Lakers were the better team, period. But the bottom line is, Pat, why even put yourself in this precarious situation? You clearly know how people are going to interpret and infer your comments. It was an implicit kind of response. And I understand that you were miffed that LeBron James turned you down after the 2014 season. He spurned you a little bit, but he still won your organization two titles. And the bottom line is now you come out and you say, not to mention, it wasn't even like you said it right after the championship where it's understandable. Your emotions are high. You just decide, hey, you know what? I'd like to vent a little bit. You say it 2 weeks removed. Are you just seeking clickbait? Or are you just seeking headliners? Pat, you're better than this. You were part of the Lakers franchise. You were one of the greatest coaches, not only in NBA history, but with the Lakers organization. You led Magic Johnson and Kareem during their incredible run. You are a well-respected and highly intelligent and savvy individual. You know what kind of impact your words are going to have. And chew on some sweeter grapes, man. Enjoy some wine. Go to a vineyard. All right, there's no need to consume sour grapes right now, is the bottom line. Johnny Riff, Boston should have won. I agree. The Boston Bruins weren't a bad team this year. They were not a bad team this year at all, the Boston Bruins. Okay, final topic of the day, Maliks Moments. I kind of went back and forth a little bit about two teams or two individuals, particularly one, Davante Adams with the Green Bay Packers in their 35-20 win. He was fantastic. Listen to this. So entering the game against the Texans yesterday, Davante Adams had 253 yards and 2 touchdowns entering the game. Against the Texans alone, 13 catches, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns in that game alone. Again, entering the game, came in with 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. Against the Texans, 196 yards and 2 touchdowns, nearly matched his season output in that one game. He was fantastic. And the second one, and this is not just me being a Wisconsin homer, since I am, that's just fact. Wisconsin's redshirt freshman quarterback Graham Mertz was spectacular over the weekend. Led at the time number 14 Wisconsin, now number 9 Wisconsin Badgers to a blowout win over Illinois. And I'll talk about college football on Wednesday, but he was 20 for 21, 248 yards, 5 touchdowns, was started off 17 of 17. He had set the record for most efficient, most accurate game played by a quarterback until Justin Fields tied it later on Saturday morning when he also went 20 for 21 against Nebraska. But Graham Mertz set team records for single game completion percentage, 95%. Again, he had 1 incompletion in his first ever start as a quarterback. First ever start. He was virtually flawless. 5 touchdowns and a single game record for touchdown passes. His first 17 completions matched a team high for most completions in consecutive throws. And listen, this was the best recruit, the best quarterback recruit that Wisconsin has ever had, and he's lived up to the billing. It's unfortunate that it just came out that he tested positive for COVID. Now they're waiting to confirm that. I hope that it's a false positive, because the Big Ten has said that if you test positive, then you have to miss 21 days at least. And if he has to miss 21 days, just when Wisconsin was about to have a good break, this would happen. This would be just so sad. And that's my Maliks moments. Quickly, Devin Sty, big win for the Dog Pound moving forward against the Houday Bengals. Congrats, you beat the Bengals. Bengals have won 1 game. Joe Burrow was great, but the bottom line though with that is you lost OBJ now. Browns are 5-2, but now we'll see how they play. But again, the Maliks moments, Devontae Adams, freshman Graham Mertz, fantastic games. And that's all I got for you today. Coming up on Wednesday, going to talk about some college football in the Monday night football matchups and a lot more, so make sure to stick tuned for that. Thank you so much for joining me today. You've been watching Morning Joe right here on the Are You Serious Sports Network, on Facebook Live, on Twitch TV, and on Twitter. I'm Jonah Malkin. Again, you can catch my show every Monday and Wednesday morning from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. And as always, have a lovely